7 to 10 days. Guys, this may very well be the final Kyle Busch update video until he makes his decision. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I hope you're doing well. It's been a busy week. Later today, in fact, I will be posting my round by round 2022 playoff predictions. I've been crunching the numbers, been trying to listen to my gut all day and night, and I'm pretty happy with how my bracket looks, so I can't wait to share that with y'all in just a few hours. But first, yesterday was media day for the 16 playoff drivers, and no surprise, Kyle Busch stole the show. Only he wasn't really talking about the playoffs so much. The focus instead was on his contract situation and impending decision. He was asked by reporter Bob Pockrass if there's a 7 to 10 day timeline on making that decision, and here's what Kyle Busch said, quote, "It needs to be. I'm not going to put a timeline on it, but time is ticking and there are a lot of other options and a lot of other dominoes that need to fall. Just talking amongst others, I'm the first one that needs to go." And then Kyle Busch confirmed that more than one team has submitted an offer to him. We're going to be reacting to several Kyle Busch quotes. This first one is kind of interesting because he talks about other dominoes that need to fall after he goes. We've already seen a lot of movement this free agency. Eric Jones signed an extension to stay in the 43. They put Noah Gragson in the 42. Eric Almirola just re-signed a multi-year deal. Tyler Reddick, I guess for the year after next, is expected to go to 23-11. So there's already been a bit of movement, but who are these other dominoes Kyle Busch is talking about? To me, that could be RCR related. Perhaps Richard Childress is waiting to see what Kyle Busch decides before he decides if he wants to keep Reddick in that 8 car next year. Or what about colleague Justin Haley? Maybe AJ Allmendinger's futures depend on what Kyle Busch decides. Looking at Joe Gibbs Racing, obviously Joe Gibbs isn't going to announce Ty Gibbs to the 18 until he knows for sure that Busch isn't returning to that seat. So I don't know, just thought that was interesting. A lot of other dominoes that need to fall. Kyle Busch may be the first of many. Interesting self-awareness, I suppose, right there. Next, Kyle Busch talks about Kyle Busch Motorsports, the truck series team that he owns. That's currently a Toyota team, and he discussed the difficulties that's presented him during these negotiations. Here's what Kyle Busch said, quote, "I would say that the truck series option with Kyle Busch Motorsports has probably made this situation 80 to 85% harder than just me. I would have a deal done by now if it was just me." Interesting quote, because I think many fans have assumed over the past few months that Kyle Busch Motorsports isn't a burden, that's an asset. If you sign Kyle Busch, you're also landing an established truck series team. Isn't that a good thing? Kyle Busch, and this isn't the first time he's said this, but this is the first time he's really spelled it out clearly, Kyle Busch is suggesting exactly the opposite, that KBM is actually overcomplicating things and that maybe other teams, other manufacturers aren't nearly as interested in KBM as Toyota has been. KBM leaving Toyota for another manufacturer would be difficult because, if I'm not mistaken, many of KBM's sponsors are Toyota partners. If Kyle Busch and KBM go to Chevy, will Chevy be able to find some sponsors for that truck team? Can KBM go find a bunch of their own sponsors? Will Kyle Busch be forced to scale back KBM's operations? What happens to John Hunter Nemechek or Chandler Smith? I guess add those guys to the dominoes Kyle Busch was talking about. Kyle has said he wants to share a truck with his son Brexton in 8 years when he turns 16. It's taken this long for Busch to sign a deal, likely because he's fighting really hard behind the scenes to keep KBM at the size and scale it is now. And while Toyota has adopted them into their family, it's not so easy for Chevy or Ford, another team, to just sign off on that and say, yeah, we'll take on a massive truck series operation. Sure, bring it in. Why not? It all comes down to sponsorship, I should be clear. If sponsorship wasn't an issue, then yeah, every team, every manufacturer would love another truck series team, especially a competitive one. But it costs a lot of money to run a competitive truck series team. If they don't have the sponsorship in place to help supplement that, to help fund much of that, then the team is more a burden than an asset. And I think that's the issue Kyle Busch has run into when negotiating with manufacturers outside of Toyota. Another interesting quote Kyle Busch dropped during this media bullpen, he discussed his personality and whether or not that's made it harder to find a corporate sponsor. Kyle Busch has always been a bit volatile, polarizing. Some fans do love to love him, but many fans love, and I mean love, to hate the guy. That's certainly not going to speak to every major corporate America sponsor that tries to maintain a squeaky clean image at all times. Here's what Kyle Busch told reporters sort of on this front. I feel like having the freedom of being able to act or react to certain situations the way that I could through the support of M&Ms allowed me to be as successful as I was on Sunday, 1000%. So will that have to change? Most likely. How much? 10%? 15%? And then he smiles, maybe it's 18%. Just throwing out interesting numbers right there. Many of y'all in the comments have talked about this in my videos for the past several months, that Kyle Busch's personality is very off-putting, and that's why it's been so hard for him to land a new sponsor, find a new deal. And I do think in many ways you're right. I think it's way more complicated than that. Kyle Busch, while he's very polarizing, he's also one of the most talented, and he's one of the few drivers at the track each week who has his own dedicated merch hauler still, so he is popular. So, I think they both push against each other somewhat, but I think the point many of you in the comments have made for months is certainly right in many ways. It may not apply to every sponsor because obviously M&M's didn't really care about it for years and years and years, but many new sponsors looking in when they Google Kyle Busch may see, some unsavory things or things that make them balk at the idea of throwing $20 million at him. So I think everyone in the comments has had a point over the past few months without question. Those were just some of the most interesting quotes I saw. One final note, he joked at the end there about, maybe 18% needs to change. Later on, he was kind of joking with reporters and started throwing other percentages out. He threw out the number 23%, he threw out 45%, he threw out the 32 and the 29. Does that mean like RFK is on the table? Because Keselowski, people thought he might bring the 29 back to RFK this year. Maybe third team over there, I don't know. 32, that could be RCR, that could be Colleague, I guess that could be anyone. It could go fast, I don't know. Busch also said with a smile, 3%. So, gosh, that'll get people talking. I love it. Kyle Busch, especially the last few weeks, has seemed a lot more pleasant talking to reporters. Maybe some of that is him changing his attitude, his personality a little bit to appear more sponsor friendly, sure. But it is kind of refreshing to see Kyle Busch, I don't know, maybe a little more laid back, at least in front of the cameras the past few weeks. Like during the rain delay at Daytona this past weekend, like he gave a good 5-10 minute interview to, I think it was Parker Kligerman, I don't remember who. And honestly, it was one of the happiest interviews I can remember Kyle Busch giving in recent memory. And he just crashed out of a race due to rain. So, I don't know, it's just interesting. Interesting how Kyle Busch has been able to change his public image a little just in the past few months. It's certainly intentional, no doubt about it. To wrap this video up, because this is probably the last, check-in video I'll do until Busch makes a decision, especially since it sounds like we may know within the next, yesterday he said 7 to 10 days, or the reporters kind of said that to him. Busch sort of agreed. I guess now it would be 6 to 9 days. Very nice timeline. Could be longer, but if truly Kyle Busch has a deal done in the next week or so, this may be the last Kyle Busch update video we do. So real quick, to recap, here's really everything we know regarding where Kyle Busch may land next year. We know he's talked to JGR, and he said this week that JGR is still an option. Reports say he's talked to Colleague, he's talked to RCR, he's probably talked to SHR, but with Almirola re-signing in the past week or two, those negotiations may be done and gone. Busch has been linked to 2311 Racing. If Kurt Busch can't return next year, if they can't get Reddick a year early, Toyota has said repeatedly that they're exploring every option to try and keep Kyle Busch in the family. Busch continues to reiterate that he wants to keep KBM. Like I said earlier, he wants to share a truck with his son Brexton one day. And lastly, Busch reiterated once again this week that he wants a longer term deal. He does not want to have these kinds of tenuous negotiations again, not during his driving career. That's the gist of it. We don't know a whole lot else. Everything else is really speculation at this point. I don't know who the front runner is. If I were to make a guess, because I know you guys all want me to make a guess and I have really no inside information here, I know basically everything y'all know, I think he'll choose a Chevy team. RCR and Colleague, in my opinion, seem to have the momentum. They seem to be leading the way. Like we discussed last week, RCR might have the faster cars out of the two right now, but Richard Childress is a big-time boss, used to doing things a certain way. And do you really want to risk potentially playing second fiddle to the boss's grandson? I don't know. So Kyle Busch could go to Colleague, who I feel like is lagging behind RCR in the speed department just a little bit right now, but they're still new. They're growing. Kyle Busch could go there and immediately be the guy who helps build that organization and lead it to greatness one day. So he may like that focus, like having more personnel say, perhaps. And I'm not even talking about KBM at this point. I don't know where that fits in. Some have theorized that Kaulig could switch to Toyota and KBM could stay a Toyota team. Maybe that is actually on the table. At this point, I don't know. Again, that's just speculation. I think those two teams are probably leading the way right now, but I don't want to rule out Toyota. A lot of things have to come together for Busch to end up at 23-11 next year, in my opinion, but Busch said it himself. Joe Gibbs Racing is still an option. There were reports a few weeks ago that Busch and JGR had effectively stopped talking. That may not mean that, talks fell through. That just may mean that Joe Gibbs submitted a final offer and there really was no more negotiation to be had. Kyle Busch just had to weigh that offer against what he's gotten from RCR and Kaulig and other teams. Busch may ultimately go back to that JGR offer and say, hey, that just makes the most sense. I think that's less likely than some of these other options, but I think it's still on the table. Wouldn't it be crazy if after months of speculation, of theories, Kyle Busch just ends up in the 18 for another year or more? That would be kind of hilarious, honestly. I would just laugh. I would think that was pretty funny. So again, as always, share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who do you think is leading the way in the Kyle Busch sweepstakes? Sounds like we may know in a week or two where Busch races next year. That's pretty exciting. Be sure to leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. As always, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. I couldn't do this show without your tremendous and very generous support each and every month. I greatly appreciate y'all. Busy day ahead. I've got my playoff predictions coming out shortly. Hope you guys are ready for that. Might surprise some people with who I have moving on out of the first round and into the championship 4. I can't wait to share that with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very, very soon.